Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And the name of today's podcast, It's Too Stressful to Be Addicted to Certainty. And this has been on my mind a lot since my audiobook came out for The Gift of Maybe. And most of you probably already know, but The Gift of Maybe was released by Penguin Random House in November 2014. So the fact that the audiobook for The Gift of Maybe came out a couple of weeks ago, for me, has been a wonderful surprise. The audiobook was narrated by a woman named Kim Niemi, and I only heard a little clip of the book before it was released. So the minute it was 12:01 a.m. on November 21st, I searched for where I could download the book. And I actually found it on Apple. And for me, when I listened to the book, it gave me a little distance between me and the book, as if I became more of the listener of the book than the writer of the book, if that makes sense. And I start the book talking about how for most of my life I was addicted to certainty. And there are many podcasts that I have that I describe it in greater detail. But what I want to read to you today is when I was listening to Kim read the book, she got to this point where she read my symptoms, which is in the very beginning. The symptoms of addicted to certainty are peculiar and particular to each person, but the common denominator is unnecessary suffering. In my case, I would lie awake at night in fear of what might be, unable to catch my breath and unable to control my mind's chatter. Was my livelihood secure? Could I afford my life? Were the stocks I invested in safe? Would my parents, children, and other family members stay well? Would there be a large-scale disaster in my city? Would I or would I not get a raise this quarter? What would the results of my annual checkup be? Would my husband always love me? I knew it was in the book because I've told the story before that when my husband told me he was leaving me after 2 days of not sleeping, I took The Gift of Maybe into the bathroom and I was weeping. I was looking for something to save me. It was my whole life was falling apart. The person I love, my family, everything I thought was true in my life was not. And I started to read the book. I was so desperate. I was reading my own book on my bathroom floor. And when I saw in the book that I had written that fear down, would my husband always love me? Even when I was crying and it was a mess and I couldn't catch my breath, there was a little piece of me that said, oh, I have maybe. And when I heard it on the audiobook, that story even became more profound because I thought to myself that not only did I write a book about being addicted to certainty and how the maybe mindset changed my life, 9 years later, the audiobook comes out and I lived through one of my biggest fears. And I got through it based on the premises in the book. And I got so overwhelmed and I just started to cry because there was something that was so validating about it, that was so real about it, that maybe actually saved me from not being able to move forward with my life. And I don't know what would have happened to me if I had not worked on my relationship with uncertainty. And believe me, I was lying on that bathroom floor thinking my life was over. And it's not like that moment when I started reading The Gift of Maybe, I was like, oh, everything's great. No, it wasn't like that. But there was this little voice, this little piece within me that knew that because I didn't know what was going to happen next, even though I was experiencing the worst thing that I could possibly imagine happening to me, I knew that life would change and I would have maybe. And it was in my mind at that moment. It was not in my heart, but it really was the beginning of me figuring out a way to get my life back. And it took a long time. But when something happens to you that's so unexpected, someone leaves you, someone gets sick, you don't get that job, you lose the job, something happens with your child. When something happens that's so devastating, even though you're in your feelings and you are so deeply in despair or not feeling that hope, when you know that uncertainty can offer you a solution, when you know it could offer you a new possibility, when you know it could offer you a piece of hope, it changes something. Even though you're feeling so awful and horrible, you know that the unknown is your ally. And you know life has maybe. Eventually, it seeps in more and more and more. And it's like you open a window and the air starts to come in. just acknowledging it, because eventually it goes from your mind to your heart, and then you really open up to everything possible. And when I was sitting on the bathroom floor, I was actually writing in the book with a pen, and I wrote down, what is my biggest fear? My biggest fear was he was going to actually leave me. So I wrote maybe statements down. And yes, one of them said, maybe he won't leave. Maybe you'll work it out. But then I wrote, maybe he'll leave and you'll be okay. And maybe you could survive this. And so there were maybe statements that maybe we'd work it out, but also maybe statements that I could still be okay. And like I said, it wasn't that I felt great in that moment, but just knowing that my life still had hope and I still had breath and there were possibilities for me really saved me that night. There was more to come, but it was my relationship with uncertainty and my relationship with maybe that really allowed me to live with hope. And what's so interesting is that if you asked me when he actually left what my hopes were, they're not the same today. So my maybe statements are different. My dreams are different. Did life unfold the way I thought? No. But a lot of beautiful, wonderful things have happened to me. And my life is something I couldn't imagine. And my hope is that I keep expanding and I keep growing. So it's not even the fact that you zero in on an exact statement, because sometimes if things need to be one way, we're going to feel a lot of pain. It's not that we want things to be one way. We want to know we're okay. We want to know that we're loved. We want to know that we could do things in our life that we enjoy. So it's great to have dreams and it's great to put maybe around them. But the biggest thing to know is if you don't know what's going to happen next, things can change and you could be okay and things can get better. Or maybe there's just something left for you to experience in this lifetime. And I've talked about this before. Sometimes it's not better or worse. It's here I am in this moment. What's left for me to experience? You don't have to compare your life today to your life 5 years ago. Here you are. What is left? What can be built? And can we keep our heart open for what's to come? And of course, as my mind settled from that statement, I really enjoyed the book. It is such a great way to experience maybe. And I'm not sure that it's a book that you should listen to in one sitting, because it's the type of book that even though you might learn something in it, it's really most powerful when you take the concept and you go out into the world. It has its most meaning when you're stressed or you're upset or you feel hopeless. And this idea, you know that things could work out in many different ways and you become so in your life and not worried and not stressed. And when you're not worried or stressed, you become more creative, you become happier, and you actually create more opportunities, or maybe more opportunities come to you. It just is such a great way to live. And then as life goes on, you could actually live in a state of maybe. And when I'm in just a total state of maybe, my life feels so magical. I don't get caught in all the little things that happen during the day. And when I'm not in a total state of maybe, I use the practice. And when I use the practice, I keep letting go of the thing that's hooking me. That's the point. All day long, things are hooking you. You're not happy how things are going. You get disappointed. And then you start to internalize it. You start to resist the moment. And then you start worrying about the future. And then lights out. No joy, just stress. And you just keep giving up on what life is giving you, and you keep missing all the great things. And then it's really hard to create the life that you want if you're always worried that things are not going to go your way. With all my heart, I want you to know that although I was embracing this idea of maybe as it came to me, as I wrote the book, the fact that one of my biggest fears came true, and it was maybe, that helped me the most to create the life that I have today, that allows me to be in joy, that allows me not to be stressed, that allows me to believe in the unknown future. I hope you give this a try. I hope you start to see the unknown as a beautiful place, that you have time and you have what it takes to stay with the things that are important to you. And if you're hurt and if you're devastated and if life is not going the way you want it to, know that uncertainty is your best friend, because if you want your life to change, it has to happen in the unknown. Don't write a future of doom and gloom when this moment is offering you everything. And always remember, maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe or Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you'd like to listen to The Gift of Maybe on audiobook, it's available on all major audio platforms. And if you like this podcast, I hope you subscribe and leave a comment.